Hey everybody, the last 2 weeks I have been talking about the book I am writing called The Unwow, Your Blueprint for Experience Designs of All Kinds. As part of my work writing the book, I'm also going to be talking about the book more and more, sharing updates, snippets, and even early content. Might even be the chance for some of you out there to help decide book covers and other things like that. If you want to be part of the early audience for this material, you can now head over to theunwow.com and provide your email address to stay up to date on all of the Unwow happenings. The website is still in early days, but the subscribe feature is live, so go to the Unwow, that's theunwow, all one word, .com, enter your email, and be part of the early audience to read how to design experiences of all kinds. Looking forward to talking with you more about the book and getting your feedback on it.
1, 2, 3.
Hi, I'm Gary David. Welcome to Experience by Design, the podcast where we explore experience designs of all kinds. Hello, experience designers and EXDers everywhere. I hope wherever you are, you're having a great week and doing great design work, making people's lives better, more enjoyable, overall an easier journey, which I think is what it's about anyway. Working from home over the summer, primarily working on the Unwow book, but other things such as this podcast, I get to see what passes for our daytime television today. Doing so, looking at what's on the various channels I have, including the streaming services, it takes me back to my childhood a little bit when I would be at my grandparents' home, when they would watch me during the summer months. This was in the archaic before times when cable television didn't exist yet. And I know for some of you that's hard to believe. And yes, it was very difficult. Although in Detroit, we were living pretty large because we were able to get the Canadian Broadcasting Company or Corporation, whatever, CBC as we call it, with our antenna. So that was pretty cool. Even with its expanded option, my grandmother's TV was always turned to the daytime soap operas, including the long-running One Life to Live. Do you remember that show? Anybody watch One Life to Live? The show ran for 21 seasons from 1968 to 2013. I never quite captured exactly what was going on being very young, but it seemed pretty dramatic. People's lives were really complicated. It's an interesting concept to ponder having just one life to live. I mean, in a biological sense, that might be pretty inarguable, given that we are alive for a finite period of time. On the other hand, it is completely inaccurate. If you think about your own life, there are probably many different lives that you have lived. We might even think of them as stages in our lives, where we end one thing only to begin another thing. At some point, in the name of the Talking Heads' David Byrne, you may ask yourself, well, how did I get here? Beats me, I have no idea how I got here. Some parts of my life seem many lifetimes ago. I don't even know who that person was. I mean, I don't even know if I would recognize them if I met him, other than we would look a lot alike. I can see glimpses of him, but that person really isn't here anymore. All that's left of that person is me right now. And even that's transitory. This is just one moment in a whole stream of time where I'm just going to keep changing as long as this life is living. So many lives and so many transitions in one life. In fact, we can say that life is about transformation and transition, changing and becoming. So much more than just one life to live. My guest on Experience by Design today, Danielle Bennett, has, like all of us, undergone some transitions in her life. First was her stint in the Navy, working first on the surface fleet and in the air service, and then working on submarines, where she learned valuable lessons in leadership and how small errors can lead to major consequences. Then there was a transition out of the Navy due to a medical discharge, meaning finding her place and purpose in civilian life. There was also that transition to being a franchise owner and entrepreneur, as well as consultant and coach. Additionally, there was her gender transition to becoming a woman, making the decision to become and live her life as Danielle. We talk about lessons learned from the Navy, especially in the silent service, such as when a lack of coffee filters required immediate action and creativity. She also talks about how coaching girls softball and coaching business leaders can be very similar in that they both require helping guide people to get the most out of themselves. Danielle uses the mantra of chin up, chest out to promote pride and facing transitions with resilience. Danielle also shares how she works with clients to improve organizational systems, especially in the aerospace and defense industries. Finally, Danielle talks about her new book, Leadership Voltage, Capturing Lightning with Triadic Balance, where she emphasizes growth is everything and leaders need to empower rather than manage the people who they are working with or working over or who they're being followed by. She also shares her business academy, D7 Precision, offering 12 to 14-week intensive coaching programs. So there's a lot of content to cover, a lot of transitions to think about, and a really great conversation. Hope you enjoy it.
It's great for 7 a.m.
I know. Well, it's 7 a.m. for you. Yeah, it's 8 o'clock for me. I was just going to say it's an interesting time to be a Navy veteran with all that's happening in the news. And I'm just wondering, well, I mean, there's no shortage of experts online right now, it seems, to talk about Navy things. So I was just wondering if your friends come to you as the point person to ask questions about when there's Navy events in the news.
Sometimes, not really though. I mean, I don't know.
Well, I would imagine your experience is pretty unique in that you were surface Navy working on planes and then you were in a sub. So are there many people who have actually touched on all three aspects of, spheres of activity, the air, on the surface and underneath?
Not really. You'll get it here and there. I know, like my submarine captain named me Chopper. That was kind of like my nickname with him. It was because I had wings, right? And they don't like that too much on the submarine. So that was always an interesting thing. But other than that, no, I would say that in my time in the submarine, maybe ran into like one or two other people who had the kind of experience that I had.
Yeah, I guess it would be pretty unique to have wings and dolphins as well. Just to kind of get that global view of everything that's going on and have that global understanding from the all aspects of the Navy.
Yeah, and I think that was kind of one of the things that drove me into Supply Corps from the Navy was the opportunity to have both sides of that coin, or all three aspects, right? Because being able to go on the surface ships, being an aviation mechanic, being on the submarines, and then even have an opportunity to be in the desert was kind of fun for me.
How different are the cultures between surface fleet and submarine fleet? I mean, I've read about it, but from your firsthand experience, is it really even today different cultures in terms of how, ships and boats are run and how people orient to one another?
Oh, 100%. The difference, I would say, like, when I was in the submarine, there was more, let's say this without offending anybody, but on a submarine, we had more camaraderie.
Yeah.
Everybody had to know their job, because if you're under the water and one person doesn't know their job, you might not come home.
Right.
If you're floating on top of the water and one person doesn't know their job, you might still float.
Right. It's a pretty good point, pretty stark ways of putting it. And that everything I've read about being on a submarine is that, all it takes is one person overlooking one thing and the consequences could be catastrophic because it's like being in outer space, right? And it's the idea of being able to be rescued is pretty slim in some of the environments that you're operating in.
Yeah, I'll give you a kind of a funny example. Didn't hurt anybody, but maybe some egos. We were doing workups. Workup is kind of like where you're at when you start to get ready for um, when you start to get ready to go back to sea for like a long extended period of time. And so we're underway. We're doing an inspection. My boss's boss is on the boat, and or like the CO, the commanding officer's boss, is on the boat, and we're somewhere around like the San Diego area, and we're just kind of sailing, doing our thing, and I get this wake up 2 a.m. Yeah, it was about 2 a.m. in the morning. My culinary chief comes through my stateroom door and it's like, Chop, get up. Someone just blew sands in the galley. Blew what? So you kind of like shake off this going on, and then this acrid odor hits you. Well, what sands in the galley? So in the submarine, you pressurize system, and then you blow out like dirty water, sanitary, like waste and things like that. And as this is happening, one valve was not closed.
Oh God.
And instead of going into the ocean where it should be going, right, so that the shrimp can eat it, it goes through the galley sinks.
Oh my God.
And so you get out and you're up in 4 inches of waste, and the entire boat is awake now, right? Where normally you have 3 watches. My the captain's boss is on board, and now I can only imagine the situation he's in. I know the situation I'm in because I'm not going to be able to feed anybody on the boat.
Right.
At all. We're not going to be able to cook food until this mess is dealt with, until everything is gone. But one valve in the wrong position, right, put the entire ship at jeopardy. So wow. Absolutely, small mistake of one valve in the wrong position. Excuse me. One valve in the wrong position, gone.
Yeah, it also makes me think of, the centrality of your job, as being in charge of procurement. That one of the things I've read is one of the things that provides people with some comfort is the food that's available and the, creature comforts of coffee or of certain kinds of supplies that you rely upon to make those make when you're at sea more tolerable and manageable. And it really, I've become more grateful for supply chain and procurement as I've talked with people on this podcast who are in supply chain, because without supply chain and procurement, nothing works. Before I was in logistics, I might have said, yeah, maybe. But after logistics, I would say absolutely. Not only are they making everything work, they're also not getting any. It's also a very thankless job, right? So that was something I had to watch out for. So not only are they responsible, and it's kind of nice because I do that with my leadership now. It's like you're responsible for other people's morale, other people's energy, other people's space. And I would tell my supply team often, right? Everything that we do revolves around the meals that we're going to put out. And then in my logistics division, right? The morale of this boat is based on, can I stay at sea? Can I stay and do the job that I need to do? Because it's nothing worse than a feeling of a system that I'm in charge of is broken, and now I have to go into port to fix that so that I can go back to sea while I'm supposed to be doing my mission. Because if I'm not doing my mission, somebody else is doing it for me. So
not only in the supply corps, but also right within everything we're doing. So on my first deployment, um, we actually, it was my very first deployment on a submarine ever, and this is how you get a very innovative crew. But we didn't have enough coffee filters.
Oh, wow.
We made sure that we had enough coffee, right? That we weren't going to leave port without enough coffee.
Mm-hmm.
But the very first time I went to sea at a long extended time, we're 2 weeks into this deployment, and I get the report that we don't have coffee filters. And very quickly, you can see how that can affect 150 people. And so, and the good thing is like the first 40 days or so, we did have a port stop that we were going to be in. We were going to do a BSP, which is kind of like a support stop, where I could get coffee filters, but I had a week and a half where I had to figure out, do we ration these? Do I put coffee, and believe it or not, do I put coffee in the officer space and not coffee in the enlisted space? How do we make filters in the enlisted spaces where they're going to get their coffee, the crew spaces, versus where the officers are going to get the coffee? And so that was kind of an interesting, for me, being a very young supply corps officer at the time, being, in charge of this department and then having to deal with this seemingly small issue, which was actually a very big issue.
Right.
Coffee filters, you would think. But we, through some innovation and through we were able to make some coffee filters ish. I think we ended up creating some. Everybody kind of chipped in, and we made one with some mesh wire. We made one with some, what was it, paper towel, I think. We tried just about everything, and it was going to be like, who or how are we going to be able to do this? But the one thing I wanted to be sure of is that we solved this problem or this challenge in front of us without just being like, okay, nobody gets coffee. So that probably wasn't going to work.
Right.
But when we talk about food in a morale sense, I think what we're really talking about is, okay, how does that make somebody feel? What is it about the food that makes them feel like they're in a position to do something? Well, I think a lot of leadership is very similar to that, right?
Right.
Where if we can meet somebody where they are, we can fill them up almost like a meal. We can give them the energy. We can give them the ability to kind of get to where they want to be in that moment. And they can walk away with just a little more satisfaction than what it was that they came to us with. I think they're going to be in a better place. And so are we.
I would imagine also in some way that the coffee filter situation provided some kind of, distraction and engagement where, it's a hassle, but at the same time, it's an opportunity for people to be like, how are we going to fix these coffee filters? I'm just imagining a lot of people trying to come up with designs because now there's this, almost like on Apollo 13, we got to make this round air filter fit into the square thing. So it's like, how do we do this? And a lot of people coming up with designs and innovations and ideas that actually filled that week and a half until you could get into port.
Yeah, that was kind of fun too. Just to see the different problem solving. I'm sure the captain didn't, like the distraction,
right?
But you're right. I think that the crew did, and 3/4 of the way through the deployment, right? We could have been in a position where we could have let this one mistake define this entire deployment. Now, don't get me wrong. People were not going to let me forget about this.
No.
But I think the important thing is that I did take responsibility for it, right? We went on deployment almost immediately after I showed up to the ship. None of the planning was mine. None of the Preparation was mine. The food was already on the boat, right? So my job was just go around and count as whatever I could before we deployed to make sure that we were as close to prepared as we could be. However, um, I think taking responsibility, owning that responsibility, getting that creativity going with the crew, figuring out how are we going to get to sea, or how are we going to stay at sea? Don't get me wrong, we were not coming home because we didn't have coffee filters.
No, no, no. I would imagine
but
that.
that could have absolutely been a defining thing in our deployment. Almost similar to a situation where, just from a supply side, we got into a port. We've been at sea almost 90 days, and so our freezers are running low, right? So we're coming into port to get to have a Liberty stop, but also I needed to fill the boat with food, and we get into port, and instead of 1,000 pounds of chicken, okay, and that's a lot of chicken. And I'm talking about chicken breast, right? Instead of just getting 1,000 pounds of chicken breast, you get 1,000 pounds of whole bird turkey. Those
Wow.
are round, those are huge, and they're not going to fit in the freezer.
Right.
So we had to figure, so it's just another fun situation. I think life is a lot about like this, where you're going along, you think you've done everything right, you think you got all this going on, and instead of getting 1,000 pounds of chicken, life throws you 1,000 pounds of turkey that's circular, and you're put into a rectangle box.
Right.
And in this case, we're going to have to take as much of this as we possibly can. We're not going to have any chicken. Everything's going to taste like chicken. Everything's got to taste like chicken. But we're not going to have a lot of chicken. It's going to be a lot of turkey. Didn't change the menu. We ate a lot of chicken that probably the crew didn't really recognize was turkey. But they still had the chicken. So that was kind of a fun thing. However, when you get into these situations, again, like I was saying, I can make this a situation where I can beat up on my team, I can beat up on my crew, I can beat up on just about anybody, or I can open that space, make it a safe place for people to create something and figure out ways to innovate in that situation. And that's kind of the only way we had, which is what I loved about the submarine, right? Every challenge was going to get solved because there was nowhere else to go. There was nothing else you were going to do. You were going to solve this problem. You're stuck in this situation, literally stuck in this situation, and you're going to problem solve it until it's fixed.
Is that what attracted you from going from the surface fleet to submarines? That challenge?
Actually, what attracted me from going to the surface fleet, so I thought maybe aviation supply. What attracted me was needs of the Navy. So I didn't really have a choice.
Okay.
Volunteer. It's a volunteer situation unless you want to stay in the Navy. So at that time in my career as a supply corps officer, I was deemed to be an independent supply corps officer coming out of school, meaning that I could take on a higher challenge because I had been enlisted for 7 years prior. Or at this time, maybe it was, 7 or 8 years prior, I had already been enlisted. So they're like, okay, you can go take on independent sea duty, which pretty much means you don't have a higher supply corps officer looking over you, doing anything for you. And so I ended up having the opportunity to be on a minesweeper.
Oh, wow.
Or I could go on a submarine.
Okay.
So do I want to go float over top of bombs? Or do I want to take my chances underwater? Or do I want to find myself out of the Navy? So I went submarines. I don't think before I selected submarines, I don't think I had ever seen the top side of a submarine, nor have I been on one.
Oh,
wow. For an attraction purpose, I kind of fell into it almost literally.
And is the idea of we got to make it work? It seems like that would be the primary thing that informs the work you're doing today as well.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of, that's kind of where Watch Me Do It Anyway comes through.
Right.
Right. That's more of an internal struggle though, right? We're going to have this place in our body, in our space, in our heads, or this experience from the outside world where we're doing, where we're moving forward, and it's kind of all about forward momentum, forward movement. It's about not necessarily listening to the noise around you, finding a way to create a culture, or manufacturing a culture that is positive, that is problem solving, that is able to get a mission done. Because there is no way. And when I talk to my teams now, whether it be in a small project or a small business, right? Well, we have a certain budget, we have a certain amount of something, and we have a commitment that we made. How do we fulfill that commitment? Not what makes me comfortable, what makes me, what's going to get me through this 8 hours, what's going to get me home. None of that. It's how do we create an environment where everybody understands what the situation is, what the end goal is, and along the way, we're going to hit we might end up taking a detour. We might hit some potholes that give a flat tire. As long as we don't crash this car or this boat, how are we going to get to the other side here? And I think a lot of that, that kind of attitude is also what helped me in my transition, even.
In what way?
Well, I think when not just in my military transition coming out of the Navy, but also in my gender transition, I feel like there was a lot of times where I could have just stopped, right? It was so hard that I could have just said no. Right. I could have said, you know what, I am too uncomfortable and I don't want to grow anymore. I don't want to keep going. I don't want to take this right turn. I don't want to go through this door. I don't want to move into a place where life is maybe not going to be as fair. Maybe it's going to be more challenging. Maybe I'm going to be uncomfortable. And in those ways, so if I hadn't had that experience in the military, had I not been able to shape my thoughts around the triadic balance, had I not been able to shape the places that I'm going, there's many times where I would have hit that proverbial wall and not had this resolve to, sometimes, and I say this often. I was talking to my softball team yesterday as we're coaching. There's a couple things that I say to my softball team: chin up, chest out, right? And I think right? And you stand up taller, you gain more energy throughout your body. But oftentimes, in coaching girls softball, right, chin up, right, I got to be able to see where I'm going, chest out, right?
Right.
If I take that, I can actually put my body in a good position. But also, how is that going to affect me going forward? So chin up, chest out, just in this position, kind of helps out. And yesterday, as we were going through this practice, we were also kind of going into some of these space where I was like, okay, sometimes the only way over is through. Right. Even when you're 12 years old throwing a softball, right? We're going to have to break some of the things that we know in order to get to the things that we don't know.
Right.
So especially when you're trying to learn or build something new. So in my transition, I didn't know a whole lot of anything. I had to recreate a whole new baseline of myself. Right. I had to walk through this transformation in order to be able to grow forward. And I feel like in leadership or in life, that's very similar across the board. We're going to run into those situations where even what we know is no longer helping us to get over this wall, to unlock the door, to go around the wall, or to turn backwards. We're not going to have that opportunity. We're not going to have the opportunity. Like, I had no opportunity to go get more to go get more coffee filters. I had no opportunity
Right.
to get chicken instead of turkey, but I had a 500 meals, 600 meals to make every single day that were going to impact an entire mission. Believe it or not, the food on a submarine, or the food in life, or if you will, the energy that we provide people based on how we interact with them will absolutely affect their life. So in these positions where we are at this space, sometimes the only way over something is through it.
Right. And, you just made me think of something that you're talking about your softball team, around 12 years old. And I have 3 daughters. My youngest now is 16. And you think about them transitioning and having to reckon with what does it mean to be, from a girl into a young woman, and all of the societal influences that are trying to tell them what that's supposed to mean, but them having to, chin up, chest out, have the confidence to be who they want to be. Right. And then there's there are pressures on boys too, but I think the pressures on young women are so strong and unique compared to young men that it's a lot to deal with. So I would imagine that you going through your transition puts you in a unique place to help them think about their transition, going from being, this pre-adolescence into being adolescents and then being into adults, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I am not the typical parent coach, right? I'm not going to walk into a team and only care about winning, right? So this is a developmental league. This is a developmental team. And I know that as a coach, you have influence immediately walking in. So everything that we do within that program is going to be building on top of something. It's going to take somebody, and I'm going to meet. It's interesting because last night, as I was going through my softball practice and I was preparing for this today, I was kind of looking at the parallels between coaching a softball team and coaching in life, right?
Right.
And here we are. Everything that we're doing is exactly what we're talking about today. I'm going to meet you where you're at. Okay. I'm going to meet my players where they're at in order to develop them to where they need to go. So when you're talking about how do you the same transition, I think you're absolutely right. One of the notice so I have 4 children, and my oldest daughter is graduating high school this year, and I got to coach her from 8U softball all the way through 14U softball, because then she went to a more advanced team, and I had coached her only in this recreational league. But it's the same thing that we're talking about. Okay, we're gonna find ourselves in a position where we don't necessarily know or understand something. So for her, it was catchers and the pitcher. She's a catcher. And as a catcher, she's sitting there. She's the only person that can see the entire field.
Right.
She's the only one. And so there's a lot of discomfort when it comes to initial catcher. So when she first stood behind the plate and had this ball thrown at her and she's got to sit there and wait, to today, and when I'm looking at a player, when I'm looking at a business, when I'm looking at anywhere, it's where are we today? Where are we trying to go? And what are the steps in between that need to take us there in order to transition or to move forward? And the little nuances that we have, there's another one that I really like to tell my players often, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be. So what do I mean when I'm talking to a player or coaching even in life? It doesn't have to be perfect. Okay. I have to show up first. Once I show up, I can put myself in front of the ball. I can put myself next to the ball. I can put myself in a position. But the very first thing I have to do is show up. Now I have to go towards that ball as it's coming at me, or I have to go towards that problem as it's coming at me. I have to go challenge that or be proactive in the situation and move towards something.
Right.
So I think that's where it starts to help with the younger kids, the younger athletes. But to mention now, if I'm coaching a team of baseball players, I'm coaching that team way different, right? But and you're absolutely right. I think society puts a lot of different glass ceilings on our girls, but also on our young women.
Yeah.
I think we have we could talk. That could be a whole other subject or a whole other season of this podcast. We could talk just about the different challenges that that our boys face versus what our girls see. But in this situation, I am not going to let that into my space, right? I'm not going to let that into my athlete space. In this moment, you're an athlete. Now, how do I take an athlete and turn them into a better athlete and give them some lessons along the way? And so that's what we're trying to do. And so what I'm trying to teach them, chin up, chest out. Okay. Not only on the field is that a very great place to be, but even when I'm walking into school tomorrow, or when I'm walking into school 6 years from now, or when I'm putting myself into a position where I don't know, okay, I can shrink, I can shoulders back, I can kind of get that round back, and I can,
right.
Or I can remember, okay, chin up, chest out, move forward, right? Everything goes forward. Chin up, chest out, everything goes forward. Okay, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be, oh wow. Now we're moving out of these small softball lessons into real life lessons. So I love, while I was preparing, that was the parallel I saw. And then I was interesting that it came up in our conversation even today.
Yeah. And I think one of the most challenging things in what you described right there is being a catcher in 8-year-old softball. Cause my daughter did that and you have no idea where the ball's going to go. I mean, you know where it's coming from, but where it goes, no clue. And you just got to react to wherever it ends up. And sometimes that's over the plate, but more often than not at that age, it's who knows where.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to learn to be a wall, right?
Right.
And the whole team is watching this too, right? And what is their job to do? Okay, I have to play my position, but now I'm going to have to give my pitcher some energy, especially if they're all going in the wrong place.
Exactly.
Now I have to share my energy with my pitcher, right?
Oh my God. I used to watch, my daughter was playing softball and, I just feel so bad for the pitcher, and she was catching. I'm like, you just got to support the person on the mound, because when it's going bad, it's going very bad, and everyone's watching and everyone's relying on that person, but you got to be their kind of rock to support them and kind of give them encouragement.
You absolutely 100%. And I know this personally as well, because my youngest daughter is a pitcher.
Okay.
And I spend a lot of time catching. And so does my older daughter. And in the beginning days, yeah, absolutely. You have 3 nets out there out in the backyard.
Yep.
And it's in the very beginning of this, that ball may not hit a single one of those nets.
Right.
I mean, that's 8 feet on both sides of you. And you're trying to do that. And all you can do is sit back there, give her another ball.
Yep.
And say, hey, that was a great pitch because your mechanics were right. And sometimes that's exactly how I feel. Everything that I'm doing is exactly the way it's supposed to be. Now I'm going to pitch the ball. I was just about to pitch this ball. I know our listeners aren't going to be able to hear or see that, but I just had my hands up like I was going to pitch a softball. So we're gonna have our mechanics right. Everything's gonna be in the right spot, right? We're gonna be in that 3 o'clock position up here.
Right.
We're gonna everything's gonna come down. It's gonna feel fluid, and the ball's gonna go. It's gonna go, or it's gonna hit the batter, and that person's gonna get a free walk, and that's gonna feel really frustrating, because the catcher's in the right spot. Everybody on the field's in the right spot. One thing goes wrong, just like on that example we had in the summary, and now you have somebody on base. All right, so what is that? That's a new challenge. We didn't expect that challenge. We have this. All right, it's 1-0. We're winning. It's the bottom of the last inning, right? And now we have a potential tie or even a loss coming up to the plate. How do we handle this? How do we put ourselves in this pressure situation and still maintain who we are? Now we're in pressure. Okay, that first baseman's going to take second base. Okay, right. So now they're going to be 60 feet closer to this position where you could be in a loss. Everybody on that field has to be able to drop back into this place where we know what we're doing. We have to chin up, chest out. Okay, breathe. This doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be, let's go chase that ball. Let's go get to that ball. Every pitch, we have to think, okay, the pitcher's going to put it on the plate. I teach my daughter to put that ball very low, right? We want a low ball, just off the corner of the plate. A lot of times in smaller leagues, you're not going to get that call every time. So she might have to start to work that ball into that plate, and it might end up over across that plate. Now what? Now that ball's coming at you. Now you have another challenge, and now it's almost like you're juggling these challenges. What do you do with them? Right? Okay. The only way we know what to do is we've practiced this. We've been in this situation. We've done it. And now we're putting ourselves in a place. And I think sometimes when we have these more experiences, we just we forget that they're all kind of interconnected. And something unique that I like to do, even in my training, is I'm able to take the military experience. Okay, I can show you how to do this 100 different ways or 100 different times, but we're going to be and then going towards the same goal. I can take the different educational experience, the different life experiences that I have, and we can put this together, not just on a 12U softball team, but also, on a multi-million-dollar project or business or in any area. And what are we doing? We're playing pitch and catch. We're doing the same thing. Our mechanics we think our mechanics are great, or if anybody's ever played golf before, if you got a 1 millimeter open when you hit that golf ball, if your driver is 1 millimeter open, when you square up that ball, you're slicing it, right? Just that small little adjustments that we can make. So what does that mean? If I'm the coach on the sideline, I have to, or if I'm a manager or leader in my team, I have to understand what is the pressure of my team. In a moment, I know as a coach, even as a leader, I have the ability to call timeout. I have the ability to say, hey, let me calm the situation down. Walk out there. If my pitcher's throwing errant in a 12U game, and walk two batters, am I just going to remove her out of the game? No, I'm going to walk out there. And I love doing this with my daughter. We go out there, we talk about anything other than the situation at hand. Believe it or not, when I'm on that mound, I might ask her what she had for lunch that day. I might ask her I might ask her something about what's going on at school. I'm going to take her mind off of this situation just for a second, because we know what to do. We know what we have to do. She doesn't need me to tell her that. Right. She doesn't need me to point out the obvious. She needs me to pull her out of this super high pressure moment that she feels or that she's built up in her mind, because she knows that this pitch could mean the game. Right. She knows that everybody around her is relying on her, and everybody around her is trying to do their very best as well. And it's just very simple. Do your job. Let other people do their job. If that is a ball in play, it's okay. You don't have to win this game. All right. So I think as our leaders or managers, we put them in situations where we tell them, you have to win. We forget to tell them. We forget to remind them that they have a full team behind them. We forget to remind them that, as a program manager, I don't do anything. I tell people this all the time. I'm a program leader. I do absolutely nothing. But if I can do anything, I can be your cheerleader. I can be the person that's up at 6 a.m. so that I can be ready for you. I can show up at your door. I can do whatever you need to be a better part of who you are, and push you forward. So yeah, I didn't think we were going to get into the softball analogies today. I'm glad we did.
Yeah. I mean, it's funny because I've taught classes in sociology of sports, and I'm actually in the process of getting a coaching license for Nordic skiing, because, one of the things, and I've helped out teams before, but one of the things I think that's so valuable about sports, which goes back to what we were talking about, is that it creates those moments of intentional friction that teach us to have resilience in the face of things not going as planned, things not going the way we wanted to, redefining success beyond just winning and trying to do it anyway, right? It's like I was skiing the other day, cross country skiing, and my wax on my skis wasn't exactly right for the conditions. I'm like, you just got to ski on bad skis. Michael Phelps, his coach would give him eye goggles that had holes poked in them so that they would fill up with water so that he knew how to deal with that situation. And lo and behold, in the Beijing Olympics, he was in one of his races and his goggles filled up with water. Things aren't going to go as planned. That's okay. And how do we get through it anyway so that we can, if not succeed on the terms that we thought meant success, we can at least grow through the challenge?
That's so very true. And I love that you're telling me my own words back. I'm like, oh, I like this.
Right?
Yeah, go right ahead, Gary. Tell me how great this is.
Well, then I also think about, it's because I know with your book, Leadership Voltage, and even with your work with franchises, I was starting to think as I was getting ready for talking to you today, it's interesting. I don't know that franchises get much attention as a wealth or business building mechanism in American culture, which is odd because we think about brands like McDonald's and I've seen immigrant groups owning Dunkin' Donuts and they using that as a way to achieve economic stability, prosperity, the American dream, whatever. And I don't know why we don't talk about franchises more. But it seems like maybe I got this wrong, but you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. It seems like a gap in popular culture that franchises are a thing that people utilize to achieve economic viability and business opportunity.
Well, yeah, I would say, in my experience, you're 100% correct. Not just as a franchise consultant and broker, person that can sell these franchises and help you grow that long-term wealth, but as somebody who actually is a franchise operator as well through Mosquito Nicks. And when I was getting into the franchise world, my only reference point was very similar to what you're saying. I had thought of franchising as McDonald's. I was looking at Chick-fil-A, right? They have a franchising place, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about other smaller businesses. It's the fastest way to grow a small business even. Only 4% of our businesses are going to hit that $1 million revenue, right? Franchising out as a business owner is a good way, and I do help with that, is a good way to put ourselves in a position to help grow that business out of past $1 million. But a lot of owners, if you talk to them at that place, they just want their brand. They believe so much in what they're doing. They want other people to believe in what they're doing. And franchising is that opportunity where, okay, for me, for instance, I have an automated, let's just use my example. I have an automated misting system, right? That is able to be installed in your home, and it's outdoor living space. We are a pest control company, but kind of not really a pest control company, right? We're not your traditional pest control. We're more of a systems level pest control. And so, we're gonna install a system into your back or into your yard or into your space around your pool or whatever it is. And buying into that gave me the opportunity to take somebody else's dream, right? Make it part of my dream, invest in my own future, and bring that to a space. So now instead of trying to create the recipe for the cake, I already have the recipe. The oven is on. It's set at the right temperature. Right. And the franchise is going to teach me how to bake it. So when I was looking at where do I invest my 401k, I had a rollover 401k. I had no idea what to do with it. I was looking at how do I invest it without penalty, without getting into that situation. And being able to do that, as I was going through that, I found out that I could roll that over into my own corporation and use that 401k to fund my dream of being a business owner and a small business owner and building a franchise. So now, had I not looked into it, I would have had it. So before this situation of how do I roll my money over or how do I spend my own money because I wasn't necessarily certain of where the economics are going, or maybe even I think there was some lack of stability in my mind about how my job was going to go or my future, my career. I was able to take my retirement, put it into this investment of my business, and now I can grow a business. And think about it, I think the retirement age is somewhere around 71, but most are retiring at 65. And now you're living for 20 or 25 years after you retire.
Right.
A traditional 401k may not be the way to go there. And so you can now I understand, hey, I can not only can we invest in a franchise and build something that is a legacy builder in a long-term sense. Now I'm able to do these opportunities. So when I'm talking to potential franchise owners or franchisors, it is very similar to what we started this conversation. You mean McDonald's? Yeah, and McDonald's, McDonald's going to handle their own franchising, but pretty much any profitable brand that has a system in place that can be repeatable has an opportunity to be a franchise. But also I have in my inventory a business that you can think of that is maybe not even think of, that will give you all the recipes that you need in order to do that. And I'm actually opening Precision Labs, which is a small business academy through the work that I do. And it's different. It's for those people that are on the edge. Like, do I want to buy a business? Do I want to build a business? Do I want to be in this position? And we're looking at a 12-month kind of a practical where it's just one week on a Saturday, right? So by the end of the year, I think by the end of Q2, we'll have that. It's low cost, right? For just for people to go into a space and say, okay, well, yeah, but I heard that owning a business is hard from lead generation, and which it is, right? I heard that building a business is hard from conversion, from turning people into customers, which it is.
You're right.
But we have a operating system and a proven way of doing that. So instead of waiting to own a business, I'm helping people start that early on. I'm saying, here's a proven system. Let's build your confidence up. So, even the people that are saying or skeptical with me, I'm kind of funneling them over to this new opportunity of just come over here and learn something.
I think it's amazing. And, it's the idea that people want to go into business. When we talk about business as a culture, as a society, people often just start thinking about multinational corporations or, business as these huge conglomerates. But, small business is the backbone of the economy in many ways, and community. And, it's small business. I think about where I live, which is a small town. The small businesses that exist here form the backbone of the character of the place. And who owns that are people like me who went into business for whatever reason, but it's not just, it's not JP Morgan as a business. It's so-and-so family who might live down the street who owns the hardware store. And I love the idea of, we said Precision Labs, which is use a military metaphor, boot camp, to try to help people learn the ins and outs of, if you want to do this is a way to do it without reinventing the wheel, and to take a formula that already works and applying it to whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah. And I'm actually we already started in a smaller scale doing this, right? So as I mentioned, like lead generation, already doing that. So lead generation, I think it's starting on the 21st of this month, right? So the 21st of March. So that's why I didn't bring it up initially, but these are 12 and 14 week intensives where every week you're getting, an hour of my time. And I'm opening these up at an introductory price that is much lower than it should be. But that's only because I'm really looking for those smaller businesses, those backbones, those people that are less than my normal target of client, but still could benefit. It's kind of, we get back into this, because I firmly believe that every leader, every business owner, every person should have a coach of some kind in their life. And this is my way of kind of pushing that agenda, is opening up spaces for people to go to have a coach, even when they don't think they can afford it. To me, it drives me. I think when we really talk about franchising, how franchising isn't necessarily something on everybody's radar, and yet we have people like me, a broker, that can help somebody get into a franchise. I see that same thing with coaching. We expect our softball team to have a coach. We don't even know if that coach, believe it or not, we don't even know if that coach knows what they're doing, but we expect them to have a coach. And I mean, and then you got a bunch, nothing against baseball dads, but let me say, baseball dads are not good softball coaches.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
If you played softball, you know why? Because the swing is different. Everything is different. But who's coaching out there? Baseball dads, right? Because and we expect them to know that they're how they're doing this. At least in a business space, in a leadership space, you have certifications for coaches, but yet we don't expect our businesses to have a coach, right? Why do I want to take my business from $200,000 to $1 million or 1.5 million or 6 million or 10 million? Well, I want to do that because I want to leave something for my kids. How am I going to do that? Well, I don't know.
Right.
You ever ask a business that's at that, precipice of a space where they're just on that brink of breakthrough? Well, how are you going to do that? Well, I don't know. Right. Well, with the profit acceleration software that I use, I can find a way to help you do that systemically. And then we're in the leadership space too. So, I mean, we get into these events and these places where we don't necessarily feel like, oh, should I have a coach? Well, it depends. Do you want to be average or do you want to be elite? Where do you want to be?
Well, I think it makes part of this theme is, coaches being there to help us make these transitions into different areas that we're trying to move into. I'm a teacher, professor, but it's funny because no one taught me how to do this. It would have been nice. I just watch people do it. And I'm like, I don't like what that person does. I like what that person does. I'll be more like the person I like than the person I don't like. It would have been nice to have somebody. I mean, we would call them mentors, but it would have been nice I don't know that I love the term mentor because it feels more hands-off-ish than a coach, which feels more engaged. Maybe it's just my semantics, but coaching feels more connected, more involved than just mentoring.
So I don't know. I like your definition of the change here, but I would say in my experience, I look at it as a mentor of someone who takes what they know and applies it to you, right? They give you a mentor is going to tell you their experience, their places, and then you have to interpret how to put that into practice. I feel like a coach versus a mentor, when I'm looking at how is a coach has all the knowledge of not just you, but all the other players, all the other people, and they are giving you a way to apply that.
Okay.
So application, I think that mentor is kind of the one that is, kind of will give you their experiences. Right. But as a coach, you're teaching people how to apply what they have or what they know such into a way that it works.
That makes sense. No, I like that. And yeah, I appreciate that because it's, the kind of work that I try to do is I try to teach my students is how do you use what you've learned or what you're learning in a way that affects some positive change or helps you accomplish your goal. My job is not just to teach, but it's essentially to coach, right? To use this term. How do you use what it is I'm teaching you in a way that directly has results that you're looking for? Which I think a lot of education, frankly, not judging it, but it's more that component's missing. It's more just the providing of information with that gap of how to utilize it.
Yeah. Wow. Yes, I agree. I mean, I think traditional, and I'm not in the academia space, but I would say traditionally, I get a bunch of information and now I have to figure out how to apply it. And the way you're doing it and the way that I was talking about as a coach is not only am I going to give you information, I'm going to teach you how to apply it. And I like that a lot.
Well, you are in the academia space in a way because you've created a program I mean, that's essentially what it is. And you're teaching mechanics of how to pitch and how to catch or how to field or how to hit. I mean, it's all education. It's just the venue of it is different, right? But it is still, at the end of the day, teaching. It's instruction, and it's trying to help people get possession of an ability to help them accomplish some goal that they have in mind, whether it's to hit the ball, throw a strike, catch a ball, start a franchise, whatever it is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like the way that you wrap that up too, and put that into a bow for me. Hey, here, hand it over to me. Thanks, Gary. I appreciate that. Now, Danny, say something smart. Come on, say something smart.
You've been saying, but you got a book. I mean, and real quick, I know we're coming up at the end of it, but I noticed that your book was published on Christmas Eve in 2025. At least that's what Amazon told me. Was that intentional, or did that just happen that way?
So, okay. So I would love to say it was intentional.
Yeah.
It just happened to me that way. 2025 was a very tough year for me. It was very humbling. It was a growth year. For those that maybe don't know, that was the first year of my full transition. So not only that was the year that I opened my corporation, started my franchise, expanded my business coaching, got into everything DISC certification, John Maxwell certification and leadership. And so there was a lot of growth, and I learned what my new baseline was in 2025. So it was actually kind of like a very sweet bookend to 2025.
Yeah.
It was very uplifting to me as a faithful person. And I know everybody has their way of faith differently, but me, it's Christianity. So I going into having that happen on Christmas Eve, not thinking it was even going to the book. Amazon had told me when my publisher had put it onto Amazon, Amazon had told me that it may not make it until the next year, right? So having it come in on Christmas Eve with my family here, being able, I saw it pop up, and
that's amazing.
I started screaming, and my dad comes in like, "What is going on?" I was like, "Oh, nothing. It's okay. It's okay. Okay." My book is published. He's like, "Okay, well, maybe you could give us a warning next time." But it was that exciting, and then for it to be, like I said, Christmas Eve, it was just kind of like a gift, that I didn't know I was getting. So, everybody likes it. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I love that gift, that one that's behind the tree.
That's that's an amazing gift. And, no pressure in 2025, just undergoing, any number of transitions all at the same time. I don't know if, it's like, okay, I don't know if on New Year's Day, 2025, it's like, what's my resolution? I'm just going to knock off all these things at once.
All these life goals, I'm just going to get rid of them all. No, it was a year of opportunity, and I really felt like, so I had Marcus Aurelius in my head all of 2025, right? Choose not to be harmed and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed and you haven't been, right? Mm-hmm. And I had this in my head all year long because opportunity is going to hit, and I have to decide, do I play a victim card, or do I move myself into a realm that can help me grow? And I think opportunities, right? They're going to come along. It's what you do with them. Just like feedback is a gift. How do I handle it when it happens? And you're right. And not only that, there was some grief and loss. I lost my friend and cousin early in the year, and then my mom and my aunt later in the year. So it all happened kind of close together. And I lost my mom, my biological mom, and my aunt while I was opening my businesses. So it was,
oh wow,
yeah. So there was this period where giving up. We talked about it earlier in our discussion here. Where giving up was absolutely something I had considered. right? I mean, I'm sorry, but if anybody that's successful or anybody that is in a realm and say, I never thought of giving up, I don't necessarily want to believe them, because I don't know how to quit. And I thought about, would it be easier? And yes, of course it would be easier. Would it have been easier if I didn't keep going? Right? Of course it is. Of course it's going to be easier not to grow. It's going to be easier not to do that thing that we want to do. But at the end of the day, I had the fallback system, and that's kind of what I discussed this in my book a little bit, right? Okay, how do I rebalance myself into a position where I can go from, okay, I want to quit, to do it anyway, to move forward, to move past to this, and I introduced the triadic balance in my book in order to help us balance ourselves, find the energy inside of ourselves in order to move forward in a positive way.
I love that. I guess one last question, and because I'll be mad at myself if I don't ask it. When you're undergoing your gender transition, are there coaches for that? Because we talked about coaching and all these other transitions. Is there a coaching mechanism to help one who's undergoing that process of transitioning?
I am going to have to say very naively that I'm not exactly sure if there are. I'm sure there are, right? I tell a lot of people, hey, if you need anybody, talk to me.
Right.
Because I see people, I don't see I'm not going to look at somebody that's going through it under. If you come to me and you say, hey, I'm Danielle. Okay, Danielle, that to me, I can make that switch. And I know everybody is not able to. I have a therapist, and I believe in therapy.
Oh, yeah.
I have a therapy. Yeah. So I have a therapist, and she has been my coach, been my guide.
That's great.
Right. Throughout this whole situation, there are gender specific certifications or LGBT certifications that are out there. And I'm certain that there are coaches specifically to that. But I think going through this transition and having gone through this transition, I could say without a doubt that a leadership coach, a business coach, business and leadership coach like I am, could absolutely help a person go through that, because it is all the same challenge. We are all trying, we have a goal, right? And it is, what is the perception of who I am today? Starting a business is very similar to that. What is the perception of who I am today? My internal mirror, my internal self says, today I am a W-2 employee, and I am trying to get through to myself to be a small business owner. And that is, okay, how do I transition myself from a W-2 employee to a small business owner? You work with a consultant like me because I've gone through all of these other transitions in life. So I wish I would have researched that question. And the next time we talk, Gary, I'll have to give you a better answer. But
yeah,
this one, all I can say is that I absolutely know there's therapy available. And for me, that was the biggest help, because it helped me reframe the perception of self.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing about all your transitions, and reinforcing, the notion that life is nothing but transition. Some of those transitions might be relatively small, or some of them might be relatively significant. But at the end of the day, to make growth in life, we have to transition and grow into the next moments, and that we need help along the way to do so.
It was an absolute pleasure talking with you today, Gary, and I really hope that the listeners out there really got something from our discussion.
I want to thank Danielle Bennett for joining me to talk about life transitions, leadership, franchising, and entrepreneurship. And especially talking about submarines, because you know how much I like to talk about submarines. You can find out more about her work in the links in the show notes. As always, you can share feedback about this episode or any episode at feedback@experiencexdesign.com. Also, you can head over to theunwow.com and provide your email to be involved in all of the Unwow happenings, looking at new Unwow content, reviewing parts of the book, and even giving your insights and recommendations on what might be included. So head over to theunwow.com, provide your email, and be involved in the Unwow movement. It's going to be a big one, and you're going to be involved in it. And if you want to hear more about the Unwow at your next corporate event or professional development, training, or anything else, you can contact me, Gary David, at gary@garyconnects.com. I know it's a lot of websites happening. At some point, there'll be some kind of brand alignment. But you can email me or you can DM me through LinkedIn to have me talk about the Unwow and how to bring the Unwow to your organization. So email me at gary@garyconnects.com or DM me through LinkedIn. And with that, as always, be safe, be kind, be well, and be here for the next Experience by Design. Bye.